Hey, folks, along with your Thanksgiving holiday, you have been watching football, posting about football, and it's far from over. We've got a lot of things to discuss about college. Wow, what a shakeup in the ranks, the ranking this weekend and some of the games. I have with me now Director of Team FY Sports, Jason Banks. Jason, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Boomer Sooner. Good morning.
You're what?
Good morning.
Did you get a Sooner in there?
I had to throw a Boomer Sooner out there, man.
All right. Well, let's start out first, folks. Our Team FY Sports, we cover all of the high school football, and unfortunately, most of the teams are out, but we still have the Murphy Bulldogs. We're excited to talk about them this morning over there in Murphy, North Carolina, and they're moving right along, are they not, Jason?
They are. They're playing for a region championship this Friday night. They just won another big game. They beat East Surrey on Friday on the road, or excuse me, at home. We had Tiffany Santos on the sidelines tweeting out during that game. And I got an opportunity to spend a lot of time talking with her last night about that game, and Murphy just refusing to give up, refusing to quit. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can't go the distance like they did last year.
Who do they play this Friday night? Do you know?
They're playing Mount Airy, who is the top-ranked team in the state. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, Mount Airy is heading up there to Virginia. I'm pretty sure it's heading up there to Virginia. It's outside of take off past Winston-Salem, and you go up past Tobaccoville. So, yeah, exactly. Trust me, man. And so that's way up there. Where are they playing? Do you know where they're playing Friday night, or is that?
They are at Mount Airy. Mount Airy has home advantage for this game. So.
And is this for the state championship Friday night?
No, this is for the region championship.
Region.
This will put them in the Final Four.
All right, well, I know we don't cover or maybe keep up with a lot with Mount Airy, but the Murphy Bulldogs, where do they stack up? I know they will not stop. What was the score last Friday night? I'm putting you on the spot. Do you know the score?
I've got it here.
Who did they play? Who did they play at home Friday night? Was it?
They played East Surrey. They were up 28-14 at the half, really 28-7, and then they got a late touchdown in there. Pulling the final score up for you now, but it was a 20-point game. I want to say 49-27. So big win. They came alive in the second half, but the big story of this game was penalties. East Surrey came out wanting to, they were fired up and they really wanted to get in the heads of the Murphy Bulldogs, and it really backfired on them. The officials played the game a real tight game. There was actually 6 ejections in this game, all East Surrey players. You can imagine that hurt them. 4 of those were in the first half. So
once you lose control, once you lose control of the team, you can't control the play of the game.
No, you're absolutely right. And then you got the defense coming alive with some interceptions, and that's part of the reason in the first half that they were losing control. There these dead ball personal fouls after an interception where the team's getting frustrated at their own mistakes, taking it out on the Bulldogs, and then the officials say, "Hey, we're going to put 15 yards on that interception," and now the Bulldogs are in scoring position.
Well, I tell you what, so they're going up to Mount Airy before we close off this segment of high school football with the Murphy Bulldogs over there in Murphy, North Carolina. I've watched them play a couple times this year, and I think you framed it up best. They refused to lose. I do remember they did lose to I forget earlier in the year at
Swain County.
Swain. Yes. And that actually led us to believe that they were going to lose to Cherokee, but they came right back, and Cherokee's a tough team, and they won out their division. Mount Airy, we know anything about them? I mean, they are number 1 in their region in the state, division in the state. Do we know anything about them? I hate to put it like this. Does Murphy stand a chance? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Murphy stands a chance. I think Mount Airy probably knows about as much about Murphy as we do about them. So they've probably seen a little bit of film, but they're so far away from each other, it's kind of hard to gauge. They're definitely not playing the same opponents or anything like that. So I think it's anyone's ball game. Mount Airy's undefeated, but if you look at Murphy, their one loss, they really beat themselves in that game. I mean, if they didn't have that fumble that went recovery that went the wrong direction, they were in perfect position to score and win. So, in a sense, the Bulldogs are playing like an undefeated team as well, and they should be. Well,
Jason, we wish them well up at Mount Airy. I guess on the map, I tell you what, if you check it out on the map, I guarantee you that's got to be about a 6.5 hour ride. What do we call those games? 2 Golden Corral stops.
Yeah, 2 Golden Corrals and a Denny's.
Yeah, so that's got to be a 6.5. I mean, they got to be going up on Thursday to play these guys Friday night, but we'll see. Well, we wish them well. We will keep up with the Murphy Bulldogs. Wish them well against Mount Airy, and if they win that, then it's to the next level. So,
right.
Jason, anything else on that before we go into college and you get all excited about the number 2? Can we got anything else on high school football you want to throw in?
No. Let's roll right into the good stuff. I mean, that's good too, but let's this college stuff's got me.
All right. Well, listen. Let me just say this because I enjoy doing things like this. I asked you 2 weeks ago. I asked you 2 weeks ago if the top 4 were set.
You did. You got me again. Yeah, it felt too good. All right, I'll give you that. I was a little. I had to make a choice once again. I really didn't see Alabama losing. Of course, their strength of schedule not that great, but just that the history of the program, best coach in the country. I just really didn't see them losing. But hey, Auburn, man, 5 in a row, just beat the Bulldogs a couple weeks ago, and then turn around and knock off the number 1 team in the country.
Well, before we get into that, let me ask you. We're looking at the coaches AP voting here. Clemson number 1, Oklahoma number 2, Wisconsin 3, Auburn 4, Alabama 5, and Georgia 6. Alabama's sitting in the worst position between you and I because Alabama wishes they had that shot to play Georgia or a shot, that last shot. Georgia actually gets that last move in this chess match, do they not?
They do, and they're in the best position they could ever possibly be in right now because if you win, you're in.
Yeah, because
SEC
Auburn,
championship.
Right, SEC championship. Auburn's going to be playing Georgia, and Georgia wants a rematch, and maybe Georgia's actual defense will show up for this game. I'm sorry, guys, sorry, Georgia fans, but you know what I mean. The last time they played Auburn, Georgia came out and had a 73-yard strike down the field, and it was over. After that, a field goal, and the day was over. What's your opinion? And then I want you to take off on some of these other teams. Just have at it. What's your opinion? Why a 12-0 Wisconsin is sitting at 3? Why do you think they're sitting at 3 and they're 12-0?
Because they've only beat one ranked team this year. They haven't played a single team that's ranked currently. They did beat Michigan this year, unranked. They beat 20th Northwestern by a touchdown. So you look at their schedule. Do you really want to give them the number 1 spot when they haven't beat anybody? And they can't. So it'd be about the same thing as giving it to Memphis. Although Memphis isn't undefeated, they did lose to Central Florida earlier this year. But yeah, that's why it's their strength of schedule with wins over Florida Atlantic and Nebraska, who was horrible this season, Maryland, Indiana. You can't. So they're right where they should be, and they're in the driver's seat. They got a good chance to beat Ohio State, especially with J.T. Barrett's knee injury that he just had this weekend. If Barrett's out, that changes the whole dynamic of that game and actually gives Wisconsin a really good shot at finishing the drill, getting in. Well, that's my opinion.
Well, you got the two biggest drops this week. Alabama dropped 4 spots to 5, and Miami dropped 5 spots to 7. So they pulled themselves right out of that top 4 this past weekend.
Yeah, when Miami loses to 4 and 7 Pittsburgh, it hurts pretty bad, and it's a shame because everyone was really kind of riding high on the whole Miami's back mentality, and they still actually somewhat have a chance to get in. I mean, if they beat Clemson, if Miami beats Clemson in the ACC championship game, they might get in. Again, the problem is who they lost to, and you got a 1-loss Alabama sitting on the outside. I think that there's a better chance of Alabama making the top 4 rather than Miami jumping them at this point. And then there's other ways Alabama could still get in. I mean, they did lose this week to a very good Auburn team, but let's just suppose for a minute that Auburn wins and then Ohio State somehow beats Wisconsin and Oklahoma loses to TCU. Now Alabama's got another shot to get back in the playoff. But it's not going to happen.
There's no better way to go than all the scenarios, and then finish with "It's not going to happen."
It's not going to happen. Nope.
Well, give me your reasoning here, okay? I mean, I know a lot of times it boils down to who played who, what's in the schedule. But you are looking at an SEC with three teams: Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia, right there together, 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
And you're looking at 4, 5, and 6. What's the justification that you would think you have an Alabama 11-1 and you have a Georgia 11-1? And I understand Auburn beat both of them. That could be the one justification. But then you have Auburn 10-2. How do you think that they are figuring right now where they have them stacked up 4, 5, and 6?
Where they're at this time of year, probably. I mean, timing has to have something to do with it. But, I mean, they're all good. I mean, Auburn's loss to LSU was a 3-point loss when LSU was really strong earlier in the season. So I think that voters, especially in AP, are overlooking that. It'll be interesting to see what the actual college playoff poll is tomorrow, too, because those rankings could be different. The biggest shock to me is that Clemson is still number 1.
Why are you shocked by that?
Well, they lost to Syracuse. So, I mean, that's as bad as Miami losing to Pitt.
Was that early on in the year? Or?
Yeah, again, timing. And Syracuse, without their starting quarterback, obviously plays a factor in voters' minds. They say, hey, well, if he wasn't out, naturally they probably would have won that game.
There's a lot of argument on who should be sitting on number 1, Clemson or Oklahoma. What do you think?
I'm biased, man. I can't really say. I feel like
yeah, exactly.
I'm biased. I feel like Iowa State, their games they've lost, they lost by like 1.
Right.
I mean, they're a lot better team than what people thought they were going to be, and I don't know. We'll see after this week if Oklahoma handles TCU the way they did West Virginia on Saturday, or the way they handled them the last time they played them. I think there's no question after this they would be number 1. Well, and again, if Georgia wins the SEC championship, they got a strong case for a number 1 spot themselves. So.
Well, folks, Auburn was over Alabama 26-14. 26-14. Wisconsin over the top teams 31-7 over Minnesota, and trying to find Clemson. I know Georgia. You enjoyed a 38 win over 38-7 over Georgia Tech. I like that game for a reason because you have the Tech fans, and the Georgia fans deciding who has ownership of what they call the state, who runs the state. So Georgia Tech went down. Ohio State 31 over Michigan 20. And I can't find Clemson here for some reason. I'm rolling by it or something like that. We got any
they beat South Carolina this week.
That's right.
and it wasn't even close.
And Oklahoma 59-31 over West Virginia. Now, Jason, what is upcoming matchups in this Week 14? Do you have any upcoming matchups that you're looking at that you're interested in this upcoming week, or?
Yeah, basically all those championship games that we were just talking about. You know, we got the ACC championship with Miami and Clemson. You got Georgia, Alabama. You got Oklahoma, TCU. You got Wisconsin, Ohio State. I mean,
all right. So let's go on the record here. Obviously, Oklahoma, TCU next Saturday, 12:30 game time. You're staying with Oklahoma and no TCU upset surprise?
Yeah, absolutely not. Oklahoma made some changes defensively in their secondary. They got Jordan Thomas out of there. Thankfully, he's the worst defensive back in college football right now. And TCU played on that pretty well when they fit the first time. So because of that change, absolutely, Oklahoma.
That may be one of the games to watch. One of the biggest games in the nation this week that'll be watched will be Georgia Auburn. Huge. What are you going with?
I'm going with Georgia.
You going with Georgia?
Yeah.
So you don't think Auburn could get lucky twice? Because you got to realize, folks, that means Auburn's got to get past Georgia, past Alabama, and then past Georgia again. You don't think they have three in them?
No. I think Kerryon Johnson's injury is going to play a factor, and I think that Georgia's going to learn a lot from their mistakes from the last time they played them.
Okay. Miami, Clemson?
I would love to see Miami pull that one off.
Okay, so you're going with Miami.
Yes.
Ohio State, Wisconsin?
I think Ohio State's a better football team than Wisconsin, even without J.T. Barrett, so I'm going to go with Ohio State.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with this. I'm going with TCU. I'm going with Georgia. I'm going with TCU just to aggravate you. I'm going with TCU. I'm going with TCU. I'm going with Georgia. I agree. I think Georgia's ready for this. Be ready for this game. I'm gonna stay with Clemson. I want to stay with Clemson, not Miami. I want to stay with Clemson, and I'm going to take Ohio State. So I got Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and TCU. Okay?
Awesome. Very good.
Try to remember those. Anything to wrap up, buddy?
No, that's it. Get out and watch some high school sports this week. We got some home basketball games at all of our counties on Tuesday. In fact, Pickens is hosting Lafayette on Tuesday. Gilmer's hosting Ridgeland. Shannon's got a home game on Tuesday. I don't remember who's coming to town, but and then Thursday we got some wrestling here in Fannin County, first home wrestling matches. So get out and support your local athletes, and follow us on Facebook, Team FYN Sports Facebook, please.
And follow on Twitter at Team FYN Sports. Jason Banks. Follow again the Facebook page, Team FYN Sports. All of your local North Georgia sports, and they're working on it every day. Working on a sports show that's going to debut here real soon. And Jason is on every Monday morning at 8:30. He comes on, and then also we do a brief weekend segment on Friday on our Friday show when we're in Blue Ridge. Jason, you have a nice day, buddy. All right, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. What do you think? What's your 4 picks? That's the ones I want. I know Rose doesn't. She's still wondering what we're talking about. It is football, Rose. We're talking about football. So I want you to remember that Ohio State. I'll pull these out later because I need to know what people's picks are this week on these games. So that way we can see how they match up to my picks and Jason's picks. I have TCU, Georgia, Clemson, and Ohio State. I'm your host, BKP. When we come back, I want to tell you exactly what I think where the Michael Flynn and his son's concerned, okay? Right when we return after these messages. I'm your host, BKP. Take us a break.